The champagne glasses clinked around me, but all I heard was my father's voice cutting through the crowd. "Emma, you'd never be successful without my money." He said it loudly, deliberately, at his own anniversary party. My stepmother Victoria smirked from across the room, her diamond necklace catching the light. I felt my cheeks burn as guests turned to stare. My father, Richard Holloway, stood there in his expensive suit, looking at me like I was nothing. Behind him, I spotted Maxwell Torres, his biggest business rival, watching the scene unfold. Our eyes met briefly, and something shifted inside me. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, I set down my glass, turned on my heel, and walked out. The cool night air hit my face as I stood on the marble steps of their mansion. I could still hear the party, continuing inside, laughter echoing behind me. But I'd made a decision in that moment. I would prove him wrong, no matter what it took. The next morning, I went to my father's office to discuss funding for my startup idea. I'd prepared a detailed business plan for months, researching every angle, but he didn't even look at it. "You're wasting your time," he said, not glancing up from his desk. "Business isn't for dreamers, Emma. It's for people who understand reality." Victoria appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. "Your father's right, dear. Why don't you focus on something more suitable? Maybe charity work?" Her condescending tone made my stomach twist. I tried again, explaining my vision for a tech consulting firm. My father finally looked up, his expression cold. "I'm not funding your little hobby. If you want to play businesswoman, use your own money." He turned back to his computer, dismissing me. Victoria touched my shoulder as I left, whispering, "You'll thank us later for saving you from embarrassment." I walked out of that building knowing I was truly alone. No safety net, no family support. Just me and whatever I could scrape together. I found a tiny office space above a coffee shop in the downtown district. The rent was cheap because the ceiling leaked and the walls needed paint. My college friends, Andre and Mia, joined me without hesitation. We pooled our savings, barely $3,000 between us. We bought used furniture, secondhand computers, and lived on instant noodles. Those first months were brutal. We worked 16-hour days, cold calling potential clients, building our website by hand. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, my back aching from sleeping on the office couch. Meanwhile, I saw Victoria's social media posts showing their lavish lifestyle, their expensive dinners. She posted a photo once with the caption, "Some people are born for success, others just dream about it." I knew she meant me. My father gave interviews talking about his business philosophy, his voice dripping with arrogance. But I kept working. Every rejection fueled me. Every closed door made me knock harder on the next one. 6 months in, we landed our first major client, a mid-sized tech company looking to restructure their operations. I'd pitched them 5 times before they finally said yes. The contract was worth $50,000, more money than I'd ever seen. Andre actually cried when we signed the papers. We celebrated with cheap pizza, but it felt like champagne. Word spread quickly in the industry. Our approach was fresh, innovative, different from the old guard consulting firms. Within weeks, 2 more companies reached out. Then something unexpected happened. Maxwell Torres's company, Torres Enterprises, sent me a recruitment offer. The salary was ridiculous, triple what I was making. But accepting felt like admitting I couldn't build something myself. I politely declined, explaining I was committed to my own venture. His response surprised me. "I respect that. Let me know if you ever want to collaborate instead." That message stayed with me. Maybe allies existed in unexpected places. Victoria couldn't stand watching me succeed. She started spreading rumors through her social circles, claiming I'd stolen clients from my father's contacts. She told people I was unstable, desperate, sleeping my way to contracts. The whispers reached Maxwell somehow. Instead of believing them, he invited me to coffee. We met at a quiet cafe, and he asked me directly about the rumors. I told him the truth, showed him my client roster, explained how I'd built everything from scratch. He leaned back, studying me. "Your father's always been intimidated by real talent," Maxwell said quietly. "That's why he surrounds himself with people like Victoria." He offered me a strategic partnership. His company would provide resources and connections. Mine would handle the innovative consulting work. It was tempting, terrifyingly so. My pride screamed to refuse, but my business sense saw the opportunity. I agreed, and Victoria's face when she heard the news was worth every sleepless night. Just when everything seemed perfect, disaster struck. Brian Cole, an investor who'd recently joined us, suddenly left, taking our entire client database and business strategy with him. He'd copied everything, then sold it to Hampton Industries, one of our biggest competitors. I felt sick when I discovered what he'd done. Months of work, stolen in an instant. Andre wanted to let it go and move on, but I refused. I contacted a lawyer, started building a case for intellectual property theft. The legal fees ate through our savings. We were back to eating cheap food, working longer hours. But I wouldn't back down. My father called once during this time. "I heard about your little setback," he said almost cheerfully. "This is exactly what I warned you about. The business world eats people like you alive." I hung up without responding. Then I worked harder than ever to prove him wrong. The legal battle lasted 8 months. I learned everything about corporate law, contract negotiations, and courtroom strategy. Our lawyer, an older woman named Patricia Holmes, taught me how to think like a chess player. Every move had consequences. Every decision mattered. We built an airtight case, documenting every instance of theft, every stolen file. The courtroom was intimidating, dark wood panels, stern judges, lawyers in expensive suits. But I stood my ground, presenting our evidence clearly and confidently. Hampton Industries tried to bury us in paperwork, hoping we'd give up. They underestimated my stubbornness. When the judge finally ruled in our favor, I felt vindication wash over me like warm water. We won damages, got our materials back, and gained something more valuable: respect in the industry. People noticed the small company that fought back and won. New clients appeared, impressed by our tenacity. I'd transformed from an inexperienced entrepreneur into someone who knew how to fight. My father heard about the court victory. He called me to his office, Victoria standing beside him like a guard. "Emma, this lawsuit nonsense has gone far enough," he said, hands folded on his massive desk. "You're embarrassing the family. I'll pay you to walk away from this business. Take the money, do something quiet." His offer was substantial, enough to live comfortably for years. But it came with conditions: shut down my company, sign a non-compete agreement, essentially disappear from the business world. Victoria added her voice, syrupy sweet. "Think about your future, Emma. You've proven your point. Now be smart." I looked at them both, these people who'd never believed in me. "I'm not interested," I said simply. My father's face darkened. "You're making a mistake." I shook my head. "The only mistake I made was ever asking for your approval." I walked out, leaving them stunned. My mother called later, crying, begging me to reconsider. But I'd crossed a line. There was no going back now. Maxwell's partnership offer had been sitting in my inbox for weeks. His message was straightforward. Torres Enterprises and your firm could create something revolutionary. Resources, connections, expertise combined. Think about it. I was torn. Independence meant everything to me. I'd built this company to prove I didn't need my father's help. But accepting Maxwell's partnership felt different somehow. He wasn't offering charity. He was proposing a legitimate business alliance. I met him at his office, a sleek building downtown. His conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "I respect what you've built," Maxwell said, sliding a contract across the table. "This isn't about absorbing your company. It's about amplifying what you've already created. The terms were generous. My company maintained independence, but we'd share resources and clients. I'd have access to Torres Enterprises network while keeping creative control. It felt like a double-edged sword. My pride wanted to refuse. My ambition knew this was smart. I took the contract home to review overnight. I trusted Tyler Warren completely. He'd been my COO since the beginning, handling operations while I focused on strategy. We'd worked side by side through everything. The struggles, the victories, the endless nights. So when I discovered his betrayal, it shattered something in me. Andre found the evidence, accidentally, emails between Tyler and a competing firm, confidential documents attached. Tyler had been leaking our strategic plans for months, getting paid under the table. I confronted him in the office, Mia and Andre watching silently. Why? I asked, holding up the printed emails. His face went pale, then hardened. Because you're reckless, Emma. You take too many risks. I was securing my future. The audacity of it stunned me. I'd trusted him with everything. You're fired, I said quietly, and I'm pursuing legal action. He laughed bitterly. Good luck proving anything. But he'd underestimated me again. Patricia Holmes had taught me well. We had timestamps, digital trails, everything we needed. Tyler was gone by evening, escorted out by security. Revenge came sweeter than I expected. Hampton Industries, the company that had stolen from us before, was now vulnerable. They'd lost a major client due to poor service, a client I'd actually referred to them before the lawsuit. Now that client reached out, asking if I'd reconsider working with them. The contract was worth $2 million. I proposed a comprehensive restructuring plan, incorporating everything I'd learned over the past year. My presentation was flawless. The client signed immediately, leaving Hampton scrambling. But I wasn't finished. Using my legal experience and Maxwell's network, I identified 3 more of Hampton's clients who were dissatisfied. I approached each one with tailored solutions, addressing their specific problems. Within 2 months, I'd secured all 3 contracts. Hampton CEO called me personally, voice tight with anger. You're destroying us. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. No, I'm just better at this than you are. Their stock price dropped 18% that quarter. Meanwhile, my company's revenue tripled. The competitor who'd tried to crush us was now watching us soar. My father couldn't ignore my success anymore. At a major industry conference, he stood at the podium and gave a speech about business ethics. Some people achieve success by riding others' coattails, he said, staring directly at me in the audience. They claim hard work, but really they're just capitalizing on family names and connections. The implication was clear. He was telling everyone I'd only succeeded because of him. Victoria sat beside him, nodding along. I felt anger surge through me, hot and sharp. During the networking session afterward, people approached me with awkward questions. That's when I decided enough was enough. I requested speaking time at the next family gathering, a formal dinner my parents hosted annually. When my turn came, I stood up, hands steady. I'd like to address something. I began looking at my father. Then I laid out every detail. How I'd built my company with $3,000. How I'd been rejected and sabotaged. How I'd won anyway. The room went silent. After that dinner, Maxwell requested a private meeting. We met at his home office. Surprisingly modest compared to his corporate persona. He poured 2 drinks and handed me a folder. There's something you need to know about your father's business, he said carefully. Inside were documents, financial records, emails, contracts. They showed a pattern of stolen intellectual property, bribed officials, and backdoor deals spanning 20 years. My father's empire wasn't built on innovation or hard work. It was built on theft and corruption. How did you get these? I asked, hands shaking. Maxwell's expression was serious. I've been investigating him for years. He destroyed several small businesses to build his empire. I was almost one of them. The revelation hit me like cold water. Everything I'd believed about my father's success was a lie. Why are you showing me this? Maxwell leaned forward. Because you deserve to know the truth, and because you're positioned to do something about it. I stared at the documents, mind racing. This changed everything. The merger offer came from Titan Global Corporation, one of the largest conglomerates in the industry. They wanted to acquire my company for $3 billion. $3 billion. The number made my head spin. Mia and Andre were ecstatic. We'd be set for life, Andre said, eyes wide. The contract sat on my desk for days. I read it obsessively, analyzing every clause. Titan wanted full control. My company would become a subsidiary and I'd transition to an advisory role. Everything I'd built would belong to someone else. Maxwell advised against it. You're just getting started, he said during one of our strategy sessions. Don't sell your potential for immediate comfort. But the money was tempting. I could pay off all debts, secure my team's futures, and walk away victorious. Except walking away felt like losing. I'd started this journey to prove I could build something lasting, not to sell it off at the first big offer. After a week of agonizing, I sent my response. Thank you, but I'm committed to remaining independent. Maxwell's next proposal was darker, more complicated. We can take down your father's company, he said bluntly. Together, we have the resources and evidence. His empire would crumble. The documents he'd shown me proved my father's corruption. With Maxwell's connections and my strategic thinking, we could expose everything. But something held me back. Why now? I asked. Maxwell's expression hardened. Because he's been operating above the law for decades. Someone needs to stop him. Part of me wanted revenge for all the years of dismissal and cruelty, but another part wondered, did I want to destroy my father, or did I want to surpass him? There was a difference. Destruction was about anger. Surpassing him was about proving my own worth. I told Maxwell I needed time to decide. He nodded, understanding. The offer stands whenever you're ready. That night, I lay awake thinking about legacy. What did I want mine to be? The person who destroyed her father, or the person who built something better? My father made the decision easier. His company, Holloway Enterprises, announced a new initiative, an aggressive expansion into tech consulting. My exact market. Victoria posted about it gleefully on social media. Holloway Enterprises enters the modern age. Some companies follow trends. We set them. The declaration was clear. My father intended to crush me directly. He was leveraging his resources, his reputation. Everything he'd told me I couldn't succeed without. The corporate battle I'd been avoiding was now unavoidable. I called an emergency meeting with my leadership team. They're coming after us, I said, laying out my father's strategy. We need to be ready. Andre looked worried. They have 10 times our resources. Mia nodded grimly. And established client relationships. But I'd learned something over the past 2 years. Resources weren't everything. Agility, innovation, and genuine care for clients mattered more. We're going to outthink them, I declared. They're a battleship, we're a speedboat. Let's use that. We spent the next week fortifying our position, securing existing clients and preparing for war. My father's first move was predictable. He leaked a false story to the business press, claiming my company was under investigation for fraud. The article was vague but damaging, filled with anonymous sources and insinuations. Victoria amplified it on social media, adding her own commentary about business ethics. I watched our stock price dip, clients calling with concerned questions. But I'd anticipated this. Patricia Holmes had prepared a comprehensive media response. Within hours, we released a statement with full financial transparency, testimonials from satisfied clients, and a promise of legal action against the publication for defamation. Then I went further. I contacted a respected business journalist I'd built a relationship with and gave her an exclusive interview. I talked about my journey, the obstacles, and yes, my father's attempts to sabotage me. The article was published 2 days later. Emma Holloway, building an empire without family money. It went viral. Suddenly, public sentiment shifted. I wasn't the villain. I was the underdog fighting against corruption and nepotism. Support came from unexpected places. 3 executives from my father's own company reached out privately. They were tired of his methods, his corruption, the toxic culture he'd created. "We'd like to help you," one said during a confidential meeting. "Not publicly, not yet, but we can provide information, warn you about his strategies." Another source emerged, a former business partner my father had betrayed years ago. He had documents, recordings, evidence of shady deals. "I've been waiting for someone strong enough to stand up to him," he told me. "I think that's you." Even some of Victoria's social circle began quietly distancing themselves from her. The public opinion shift was noticeable. Her posts received fewer likes, more critical comments. Maxwell connected me with influential people in the industry, folks who'd been burned by my father before. We formed an informal alliance, sharing information and strategies. I realized I wasn't fighting alone anymore. An entire network of people wanted to see my father's empire fall. Victoria's betrayal cut deeper than my father's actions ever had. She tried to manipulate my personal life, spreading rumors about my relationship status, my mental health, even my sexuality. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt, finding nothing but still implying there was something to hide. Then she went after my mother. Victoria convinced her to call me, crying, begging me to stop this war. "You're tearing the family apart," my mother sobbed. "Please, Emma, just walk away." It was emotional manipulation, pure and simple. Victoria knew my mother was my weak spot. I met my mother for coffee, seeing how fragile she looked. "Mom, this isn't about the family," I explained gently. "This is about stopping someone who's hurt countless people." She shook her head. "He's still your father." I took her hand. "And he's also someone who's built his success on destroying others. I can't ignore that." My mother left disappointed, and Victoria used that meeting to claim I'd rejected my own mother's pleas. But I couldn't let guilt control me anymore. The game-changing move came through Maxwell's connections. One of my father's top competitors, Sterling Dynamics, was looking for a strategic partner. They'd been battling Holloway Enterprises for market share for years. I pitched them a merger, not an acquisition, but a true partnership combining our company's strengths. The presentation took weeks to prepare. I highlighted our innovative approaches, our client satisfaction rates, our growth trajectory. I also subtly mentioned our shared opposition to Holloway Enterprises' questionable practices. The Sterling Dynamics board was impressed. After 3 rounds of negotiations, we signed the merger agreement. Overnight, my company grew from mid-sized to major player. We had the resources to compete directly with my father's empire. More importantly, we had leverage. The press announcement made headlines. Holloway's daughter partners with Sterling to reshape industry. My father's response came through his lawyers, a threatening letter claiming anti-competitive practices. But it was too late. The merger was legal, strategic, and devastatingly effective. The televised interview was scheduled on Industry Spotlight, the most-watched business program in the country. Both my father and I were invited to discuss the changing landscape of tech consulting. I almost declined, but Maxwell convinced me this was my moment. The studio was cold and bright, cameras everywhere. My father sat across from me, Victoria beside him looking polished and confident. The host, Amanda Pierce, started with softball questions before diving deeper. "Richard, your daughter's company has seen remarkable growth," she said. "How do you feel about competing directly with her?" My father smiled, controlled. "Business is business. I taught Emma well, even if she refuses to acknowledge it." That's when I spoke up. "Actually, Amanda, everything I've learned about business, I learned by watching what not to do. The studio went quiet. Then I laid it out, the sabotage, the public humiliation, the stolen opportunities. My father's face turned red, but the cameras caught everything. The final confrontation happened not in public, but in my father's own office. I arrived unannounced, carrying copies of Maxwell's documents. Victoria tried to stop me, but I walked past her. My father looked up from his desk, annoyed. "What do you want, Emma?" I dropped the folder in front of him. "I know everything. The bribed officials, the stolen patents, the destroyed businesses." His expression barely changed. "You can't prove any of that." I smiled coldly. "Actually, I can. And I'm giving you a choice. Retire quietly, restructure your company's leadership, and establish a fund to compensate the businesses you destroyed. Or I release everything to the press and the authorities." He stood up, trying to intimidate me. "You wouldn't dare." I met his eyes steadily. "I absolutely would. You taught me to be ruthless, remember?" For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my father's face. Victoria burst in, demanding to know what was happening. My father waved her away, sitting back down heavily. "How long do I have?" he asked quietly. "1 week to decide. Then I go public." 2 weeks later, I stood in the boardroom of the newly merged company. The name had changed, no longer just Sterling Dynamics, but Sterling Holloway Innovations. Using my name had been the board's idea, a way to symbolize new leadership and ethics. I was named CEO, a title I'd earned through years of struggle and determination. My first actions were significant. I established transparent business practices, ethical guidelines, and a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. The company flourished under this new direction. Clients appreciated the honesty. Employees felt respected and valued. Revenue increased 30% in the first quarter alone. My father announced his early retirement, citing health reasons. Victoria disappeared from social media, her influence gone. The industry watched our transformation with interest. Articles appeared, how Emma Holloway rebuilt her father's industry, and the new face of ethical business. I gave interviews, sharing my story, encouraging others who felt powerless. I wanted people to know that success without compromise was possible. My father's retirement party was surprisingly quiet. I attended not out of obligation, but because my mother asked me to. He looked older, smaller somehow, without the power he'd wielded for so long. We didn't speak much. Near the end of the evening, he approached me. "You won," he said simply. I shook my head. This was never about winning or losing. It was about doing things the right way. He looked at me for a long moment, something like regret in his eyes. "Maybe I was wrong about you." I didn't need his validation anymore, but hearing it brought unexpected closure. Victoria tried to approach me too, but I politely declined that conversation. Some bridges were better left burned. My mother hugged me tightly before I left. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I should have said that years ago. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of proving myself, of fighting constantly, had finally lifted. I'd built something real, something lasting. Today, I sit in my office overlooking the city, thinking about how far I've come. The journey from that humiliating party to this corner office took 3 years, but it feels like a lifetime. I established the Emma Holloway Foundation last month, dedicated to supporting young women entrepreneurs. We provide funding, mentorship, and resources to those who, like me, don't have family money or connections. Our first cohort of 20 entrepreneurs just launched their businesses. Maxwell and I remain close friends and business partners. His advice and support were instrumental in my success. We're currently working on expanding into international markets together. Sometimes I think about that moment when my father said I'd never be successful without his money. He was wrong, but in a way his cruelty gave me the motivation I needed. I proved I could build something from nothing, that integrity and hard work actually matter. My phone buzzes. Another entrepreneur asking for advice. I smile and start typing my response. This is my legacy. Not destroying my father's empire, but building something better.